Yeah. I don't think Brenda likes us to clap, but we had to clap. We had to clap. That was beautiful. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Fayetteville. My name is Gene Benzant, and I'm the Chalice Team lead here, which is the group that organizes our Sunday services, especially on days when our minister is not here, which today is one of those. And we are so fortunate to have so many outstanding speakers and thinkers in this congregation and also from the community. And today, Steve Krogel will be speaking on the topic of belonging. And most of us who are members, I think, know Steve and Kate. Been here since 2019. Steve's a really smart guy. In fact, and you may not know this, because he's humble also. You might not know he's the Associate Vice Chancellor for University Information Technology, which is a big deal. But he's not just smart, he's wise, as those of you who know him know, and I'm sure will be further proved today. But we look forward to that message. If you're new to Unitarian Universalism, it is a religious tradition. Some people don't even like to call it a religious tradition or a tradition. It's a thing. It's a group of people that values freedom in religious thought and journey. We uphold the unity of our inner connections to each other, to all life, and to the universe that we're a part of. We affirm the universality of love and hope as we journey together in community, and we welcome you, whoever you are at this moment and wherever you are in your spiritual journey. We also welcome those joining us online, either live or who may watch this later in the future. We're glad to have you. You can get more information at our website, and if you'd like to get on our awesome email list, for a limited time only, we're allowing new people to join the email list, but you've got to fill this out and drop it in the offering basket. Later in our service, we'll have a time of joys and concerns where you can drop a stone in the water, symbolizing your joy, concern, milestone. If there's something you would like to share, you can write it on this card and bring it at that time, or those joining online can write it in the comments. If you need hearing assistance or just want to tell him what an awesome job he's doing, AV Tech David can help you out. Children, always welcome in our service. They are the sounds of life and of our future. Sometimes, though, they would rather be somewhere else, and maybe you would rather they be somewhere else. Anyway, we do have a staff nursery downstairs, if you feel that would be the best place for them. Remember to silence your cell phones. Yeah, that's always a good reminder. All right. Although I've heard if you're under 30, people under 30 never have their phones on anyway, but so the rest of us need to remember that. All right, let us light our chalice, and then Steve is going to give us some opening words. I invite you to say these words with me. Love is the spirit of our community, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in truth, and to help one another. Thus do we come together.
Good morning. Thank you, Gene. As Gene said, I'm going to talk about belonging today to this thing. And so hopefully we'll have some things to think about and some something that you can take home and ponder. So for my opening words, I'd like to start with a quote from Brene Brown. Most of you know I like Brene. She's very, very thoughtful and practical social psychologist and is on the faculty at the university in Houston. And she, in her book, Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone, states, belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. So just as Jean's opening words were indicating, we as UUs looked for that belonging, that larger connectedness, right? Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which not only is a hollow substitute for belonging, but often acts as a barrier to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. So today we're going to take a few minutes to talk about and to think about belonging. Like love, belonging is a fundamental human need, but what does it mean? Especially now with so much anxiety and divisiveness and loneliness in the world, it seems like we need belonging and love more than ever. Thank you.
Our opening hymn today is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. It's in number 188 in your gray hymnal. So we're going to sing this as a round. Somewhere in the middle here, you get to decide which side you want to be on. You can either follow me or you can follow Ollie. We're going to follow some old Girl Scout tradition with singing rounds, which is ever how many groups you had, that's how many times you sing the round. So we're going to sing once in unison all together, and then we're going to do round, and then kind of fade out at the end. Okay? So, all right, everybody ready? Please rise as you are willing and able.
Good morning. Our story today is The Big Umbrella, written by Amy June Bates and co-written by Juniper Bates. By the front door, there is an umbrella. It is big. It is a big, friendly umbrella. It likes to help. It likes to spread its arms wide. It loves to give shelter. It loves to gather people in. It doesn't matter if you are tall or hairy or plaid. It doesn't matter how many legs you have. Hello. Some people worry that there won't be enough room under the big umbrella. But the amazing thing is, there is. There is always room.
Thank you, Diane. We might need that umbrella this week. Which brings us to joys and concerns. We kind of are an umbrella, aren't we? We try to show that we care about each other. It's hard to show when you don't know what's going on in other people's lives. And so we like to take a time where we can express the things that are on our heart, that are on our minds, maybe good things that have come in to your life this week, maybe bad things or scary things. And you can just drop a stone to express that. You also can write that down and hand it to me in just a minute. And there is a place on the cards to indicate if you want it shared with the fellowship or not. If not, that means it'll go to our minister and to our leaders to follow up with if needed. But if you want it to be shared publicly, then I'll read it. Those joining us online live, if you write comments, then those will be shared as well. So we invite you, and Bill's going to help me up here, right, with the stones, but we invite you to come up and drop a stone. I'm going to go ahead and mention, I was going to save this for announcements, but I'm going to go ahead and mention the insert, because this ties in with so many of our concerns, especially about things that are happening in the political world and that are affecting our members. This comes out from one of our members who's being directly affected, who received this memo suspending their work and then a memo, and then rescinding the memo, and then a lot of confusion about funding for programs that help people in need of things like clean water. It is small print, I realize. So you might need to get your reading glasses. But some good information, and then something you can do about it. Contacting our senators and representatives. And I've heard in the news, you probably have too, that the Senate and the House are being overwhelmed right now with phone calls, and that's good, and we need to keep it up. And they do pay attention to that. And so that's I think it's a joy that people are responding, but it remains a concern as well. There are, I know, other joys and sorrows on our hearts that maybe we just couldn't express because they're close to our heart, or just we want to maintain our privacy. And so let's drop some stones for those unspoken joys and sorrows. And before you sit down, a few more for the joys and sorrows we will encounter this coming week, that some of them we know are coming and some we have no idea, and we'll be surprised by them. Thank you. And let's take 1 minute of silence to meditate, to pray, to reflect on these things. Okay. It is time in our service for our offering. We have to pay the heat bills and the cooling bills. Sometimes, we don't know whether to use the heat or the cool same day. It could go back. It's that time of year. We're going back and forth. But it is nice to have a safe, warm place to come to. And our utility bills, as well as all the other things it takes to run this place, are funded by the generous and voluntary offerings of this congregation. And so we invite you to share as we're able. Brenda has some music that I think fits perfectly with the offering for today. And so we'll have our ushers come forward and pass the baskets.
Thank you, Brenda. That's awesome. All right, so talk a little bit about belongings. So, what a wonderful story this morning. That the big umbrella is really just such a wonderful symbol for what we're talking about today. So, really appreciated the effort that went into putting all that stuff together. And again, the thought will be put into the service every week. You know, Jean and the cellist team, and Brenda and the music, and Ali and Melly, and as they're going to be doing some more singing later. It's just wonderful to have such a community put these services together and to make the connection, you know, on behalf of our community. So in many ways, that helps, I think, us belong and feel connected and engaged. So I really appreciate all that they've done for this service. So to start a little bit on belonging, so Kate and I were having dinner last week. We tend to talk over meals. You'll find many of my discussions involve something related to food. And she commented that she would not have believed in 2019 when we came here that I would be going to any kind of church, much less a UU church. I was not very actively involved at the time. That I would be going with her to a UU service, also something that I was not regular at doing. And while just kind of being me, that we would be, you know, have moved to Arkansas, that we've gone through a global pandemic, I'd be active in UUFF, our current president was reelected, and that I would be giving a sermon on belonging. Now, I'm not sure which one of these was the most unlikely, you know, but I suspect it has more to do with me, but, you know, but here we are. So what is belonging? And, you know, Kate asked me, you know, how I would define belongings. But if you know, she's a coach, and in best fashion, we were talking about it, and she asked for my definition, and I kind of hemmed and hawed and wandered around for a little bit. And what I discovered was that when I think about what belonging is, the context matters a lot, and you can look at belonging, I think, from a bunch of different perspectives. So perhaps it's helpful to step back and look at ways to describe it. So if you think for a minute, when we say the word belonging, so we have the nice image from the big umbrella, but how would you just define belonging? So think within yourself for a minute. How would you just describe belonging? Everybody have a word or two dialed in? So belonging is frequently used in the context of friendship, or intimacy or trust, acceptance, affiliating or being part of a group, like memberships, you know, that sort of thing, but also connectedness and being part of something larger, as we've already started to explore. I would add, and one of the things that my conversation with Kate really tweaked out, is that there's a feeling element, right? So you know when you walk into a space and you feel welcome, you feel connected, you feel comfortable. You know, it might be like a cafe where you're willing to sit down and spend some time as opposed to just get your coffee and get out, right? There's some affective and feeling and emotional components to it. So maybe, you know, my introversion coming to the fore, but I was also thinking about it even in the context of work. There's times when you go out with friends after work where you can sit and you talk and you can spend, you know, hours with each other. There's other times that you will go out and due to a work party or a work invitation for a dinner, really different vibe, right? You're like, okay, how long do I have to be here and can I leave, right? So again, sort of the notion of belonging to that group and the function that that group is serving in that moment and how you're interacting with that group matters. So when you start talking about love and belonging in that context, also tending to those sorts of other attributes, you know, turns out to be important. So this suggests that the belonging, the type that embraces the feeling of emotion, doesn't really come from that joining the club or joining a gym or doing those sorts of transactional relationships or even a church. So if you can't be your authentic self, can you really belong at an emotional level? And that's a lot of what Brene Brown was talking about, is understanding yourself and feeling okay and belonging who you are enables you to be more authentic and genuine when you're interacting with others in these other sorts of situational contexts. So why me? Why am I here talking to you about this? Well, I have a couple of perspectives that I like to share that I've been thinking about. So the first is, coming out of COVID, my youngest daughter was a high school English teacher who but seeking a career change. COVID was really hard on a lot of people, particularly high school teachers. And her district, frankly, didn't handle it well. And so she's the kind of person that, in my belief, is exactly the person you really want to have in the classroom. I would dearly love to have, my children have Natalie be their teacher. But that wasn't the career path that ended up being right for her. So she was seeking a career change as the pressures of the teaching profession really shaped her vision. And she ended up moving back to Wisconsin. So that's where she grew up. She had a lot of affinity. Her social groups, her friend groups were there. Her high school was there. So there was a natural sort of frame that she had to be in. So that was home. And so she's there now and has sort of built her life. Coming off of COVID, I think a lot of people had to do kind of a start over, right? But then in the Wisconsin framework, because she had some of those foundational elements in place, she's been able now to rebuild a social group. She's got a different career path. She's advancing in her career and feeling very, very connected. So that's, again, a sense of belonging, but in a very holistic, sort of sense around her as an individual. The other frame that I think a lot about is in the context of work. Also, coming out of COVID, everybody went remote. And nothing against Zoom, but it's not really good for a building group. And even social interactions, when you think about a work setting where you can walk down the hall and find a colleague and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or I have this idea for that. Or you can get around a whiteboard and brainstorm. Those informal constructs all became a scheduled event. So instead of having those quick drive-bys, or you want to grab a lunch or whatever, it became a scheduled event. So everybody's calendar became booked during the whole day for formal events, but then all the informal ones also had become scheduled events. So even informal, potentially collegial relationships became very transactional because that was the nature of the beast. So now coming out of that, I've been very thoughtful about trying to maintain communication and try to build some trust and build community across our work teams. A lot of my role, as Gene, outed me there, is very, very, very campus facing, and that mic's going to be a thing. It's very, very broad. And working across the entire campus, working across all those department lines and all the different interests and things that happen there is very important. And there historically has not been a lot of trust. A lot of the funding, a lot of the resourcing, a lot of the partnerships across campus have been very, very isolated and very, very local. So part of my role now is to figure out how to move from that very isolated COVID, individualistic framework into thinking about things as an organizational system, and how do we bring people together to think about how do we help the enterprise advance together? How do we lean into resources that maybe one unit doesn't have but another unit has, and how do we leverage that in a greater good? So that's something that I spent a lot of time at, and what's interesting is I hadn't put the belonging label on it, but as we were talking, very, very quickly it became apparent that people feel like they belong to their unit, their service, sometimes their device in the IT world. What they need to feel is belonging to the enterprise. They need to feel connected to the mission. They need to feel like they're actually working together. And so that's part of what I've been working on. So as this topic came up, those were a couple threads that I've been exploring. This has also, since 2019, been a time of connecting with all of you. And UUF has become a spiritual home. It's become a source for friends and relationships and engagements. And becoming part of this community has become very, very powerful. Many, many UUF members have provided reflection moments in the past services where they have shared what belonging to UUF means to them. Many have expressed amazingly powerful and personal feelings about belonging, noting that this is one of the few or perhaps the only place where they can truly be themselves, be accepted, and belong. So the power of living under this umbrella is truly phenomenal, and people have been connected. And when we joined, that's something that I felt. Part of the reason that I attend here, and part of that connectedness that I feel, is that that's a genuine part of our space and part of our culture here. So our welcome message emphasizes that you are welcome, whoever you are. Our chalice lighting ceremony celebrates love at the center of what we do. Joys and concerns and the dropping of stones all recognize the fact that we are community. And then especially with the dropping of stones, one of the things we often talk about is how the ripples in the water of dropping the stones here merge with the ripples of dropping stones in the water all over the world. UUs all over the world are doing that. So again, it's not just us, it's not just here, but it's also part of belonging to that greater environment and the greater group that is thinking about the world in our way. So the UU Association captures this universal community on their beliefs page. So I should admit I don't spend a lot of time on the UU website, but they had a site statement there that I thought was really, really helpful to tie that together. So we are people of all ages, people of many backgrounds, and people of many beliefs. We are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. We create spirituality and community beyond boundaries, working for more justice and more love in our own lives and in the world. So the thing about being part of something larger is that we are more powerful, more influential, more protected, more nurtured. We individually and as a humanity are experiencing difficult times. And I have to admit that I've largely unplugged from the daily news and event feeds, kind of retreating into music and my natural introversion. And I do enjoy time with family and friends and being present here, but my introvert defense mechanisms are like all-time high. I mean, I got flags up all over. So it's not really helpful to me and to others, though, to retreat. I think I need to retreat to heal and be true to myself and think about that stuff. But then part of being community is also asking, what can I do? How can I connect? How can I, get out of my space and to help us, all thrive in our space? Like you and a lot of the things that were expressed in the joys and concerns today is, I'm sad. I feel helpless. I'm very scared for the future. But I also have compassion for those potentially losing jobs and having their lives upended. I'm angry about the bigotry, hatred, and division that are causing pain and suffering to so many. So the problem as an individual is how do you channel that? And the insert in the program today helps give us one pathway. But this is going to be a long haul, and so how do we come together? How do we address that, in community and lean on each other when some of us are struggling more than others? And my guess is we'll all struggle at different points in different ways. So I'd like to kind of share a brief story that may offer a little bit of a perspective on that. As a bit of background, our daughters went to a daycare center close to my work when we were in Wisconsin. And that necessitated driving on the freeway and several roads to get to and from our house to that location. And I found over time, and we had a little bit of a discussion, mindful discussions a while ago, that John likes to give feedback to fellow drivers. I also feel obligated to share the wisdom of my driving ability with other drivers. So our oldest daughter, when she was about 4 or so, it was time to plan her birthday party. So she wanted to have a party, so we were planning a party. And the question of who to invite came up. And one of the things about our community is that we tended to have a lot of family friends that were more Kate's and my friends, but Maggie is just a very kind and generous soul. She bakes things for anybody who you want a cookie, man, she'll give you 3 dozen, right? And so she's always been very nurturing, and she always considered our friends her friends. So we've always had that sort of family relationship. So all of them were super engaged with Maggie, and so we were talking about who she should invite to her party. And one of the things that she was very insistent on is that we had to invite our friends too. And, so when you're 4, it's just kind of very generous space. So, and she also starts everything she talks to me about with, hey, Dad. So it's always, hey, Dad, and then whatever it is, right? So one day she said, hey, Dad, you should invite your friend Moron. So you have one of those moments where you think, okay, where'd that come from? So when I stopped laughing, able to take a breath again, I'm like, so Maggie, why would I invite my friend Moron? Well, Dad, you talk to him every morning on the way to school. He's your friend. So I promise if I use the word moron, it's strictly in the friendliest way. But, well, funny, I think there's an interesting lesson there, perhaps, for us to think about belonging, is that, from that very sort of naive and innocent perspective, she was reaching out to others and wanted to include them in her special event. So very, very genuine, very, very pure in spirit and intent that, there was somebody, obviously, that was important and that she wanted to include. So I'm trying to translate that into somebody being important, even though they have a perhaps different vibe than I would like. Maybe I should offer them a cookie instead of a comment. And the other piece I must, in terms of just leading that kind of thing, Reverend Renee has been doing the same thing and leading us. So she had vigils when the election happened. She had vigils on the first day that when our president was being sworn in. And again, trying to provide that community and providing that space for all of us to come together and have a moment and light some candles and do some things. So I think our challenge is to step back and think, what might we all do to support each other? I don't think we need to invite everybody to our birthday parties, but I think that there is a moment here to pause and think about, when we think about belonging, we think about how we belong, but I think there's an opportunity for us to think about how do we invite others in so they also belong. And what is that invitation? How do we make that okay? How do we make coming here okay and safe and a good place to be? The 1985 rather, song "We Are the World" was written by Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson. We'll be singing it in a bit. It was brought together to raise awareness, the world together, about severe African famine. And 40 years later, We Are the World, still provides a pathway for music to bring people together for many charity and crisis events. So there's Farm Aid and all kinds of other things that have, come from those beginnings. And I think perhaps the lyric, "Let's realize that a change can only come when we stand together as one," still rings true today. With that, I'll say thank you, and let's take a minute to think about our umbrellas.
We've practiced this song probably once. Brenda is an amazing pianist. This arrangement is pretty cool. If you know the words, please sing them too. In practicing this, I realized that just about everybody knows the chorus and almost nobody knows the verses, including me. So we practiced a lot, and I hope we do it justice. You can stand if you want. You can sit if you want. The words will be up here. If you know them, sing along. We are the world. There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying, and it's time when you're down and out and there seems no hope at all. But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall.
Well, let's realize that change can only come when we stand together as one. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, make a better day, just you and me.
One more time, all together.
We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, make a better day, just you and me. It's true, make a better day, just you and me.
Thank you.
I invite you to join me in these words. We extinguish this flame, that not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. All right. Thank you, Steve, for that great message and the singing. For a moment, I was Willie Nelson, and then I was Stevie Wonder for a little bit. But it brought back a lot of memories, and it is a tougher song to sing than you realize. When you're just listening to it, it seems really easy. All right. Well, Steve told me that he didn't have any closing words because he said everything. But I have some closing words, so pretend that's me. I'll be Steve. And it ties in with belonging. You know, our tendency, very natural tendency, as soon as the service is over, we look for our friends, the people we connect with, and we visit. And that's fantastic. I want to give you a challenge, though, to try to find one person here today that as soon as we end, try to meet that person or reconnect with that person if it's someone you know but you haven't seen in a long time, but especially people maybe you've never seen before or don't remember meeting. And try to connect with them, and then you can talk to, your best buds and the people that you always connect with every week. All right?
What if they're a moron? I'm a moron.
I would say especially connect with those people. I do, the driving thing, I feel like everyone that passes me on the interstate is an idiot. Everyone going slower than me is a moron. And the people going the exact same speed are just annoying. So I'm the only one, that's really got it together. All right. On that note, Brenda has some sending music for us today. Thank you again for being here.